The applicability of National Electrical Code Section 680.23F to the main feed of an outdoor package spot that includes a factory-installed light has been a point of discussion. The central question is whether the lighting provisions of 680.23F require the entire circuit to the spot be installed using conduit. Let's delve into an analysis of the National Electrical Code requirements. Section 680.23F stipulates that branch circuit wiring on the supply side of enclosures and junction boxes that are connected to wet niche, no niche, and dry niche luminaires, which are lighting fixtures, must be installed using rigid or intermediate metal conduit, liquid tight flexible non-metallic conduit, or rigid non-metallic conduit. In situations involving buildings, electrical metallic tubing is permitted, and inside buildings, electrical non-metallic tubing type NEC cable or electrical metallic tubing are acceptable. The key point here is whether the low voltage light in a typical package SPA meets the definitions of wet niche, no niche, or dry niche luminaires as outlined in Article 680 of the National Electrical Code. If the light doesn't fit these definitions, the direct applicability of 680.23F becomes questionable. Package SPAs are manufactured in factories and are listed as complete assemblies, which includes their electrical systems and any integrated lighting. These SPAs are regarded as prefabricated electrical units. Section 680.24 of the National Electrical Code addresses these prefabricated electrical units, specifying that they should be installed following the instructions provided with the unit. This means that the installation must comply with the manufacturer's specifications, potentially including specific requirements for the lighting system. Taking into account the analysis, there are compelling arguments to suggest that 680.23F may not directly govern the main feed to an outdoor package SPA that has a factory-installed light. The primary reason is that the light isn't classified as a wet niche, no niche, or dry niche luminaire as defined within Article 680. Moreover, the SPA is a factory-built and listed unit, intended to be installed according to the manufacturer's instructions. To address any uncertainties, it's advisable to consult the manufacturer of the package SPA for precise guidance on the installation of its electrical system, specifically focusing on the lighting. Additionally, it is crucial to review local code requirements, as these might differ from the National Electrical Code. To further clarify the requirements and how they relate to your specific installation, consider these points. Firstly, understand the definitions. The National Electrical Code provides specific definitions for terms like wet niche, no niche, and dry niche luminaires. Familiarize yourself with these definitions to accurately determine if they apply to the SPA's lighting. Secondly, review the SPA's listing. Check the product listing and certification information for the SPA. This documentation often includes details about compliance with relevant standards and any specific instructions for electrical connection. Thirdly, consult the manufacturer's instructions. Always refer to the manufacturer's installation instructions for the SPA. These instructions may include specific requirements for wiring, grounding, and bonding that must be followed. Fourthly, consider the scope of 680.23F. Carefully review the scope of 680.23F to determine if it applies to the specific wiring and equipment in question. Pay attention to the language regarding branch circuit wiring on the supply side of enclosures and junction boxes. Fifthly, assess the light's characteristics. Determine the voltage, wattage, and type of the SPA's light. This information can help you determine if it falls under any specific requirements or exemptions in the National Electrical Code. Sixthly, check for local amendments. Be aware that local jurisdictions may have amendments to the National Electrical Code that could affect the installation requirements for SPAs and lighting. Seventhly, understand bonding requirements. Ensure that all metal parts of the SPA, including the light fixture, are properly bonded in accordance with Article 680 of the National Electrical Code. This helps minimize the risk of electric shock. Eighthly, know about ground fault circuit interrupter protection. Verify that the electrical circuit supplying the SPA is protected by a ground fault circuit interrupter, as required by the National Electrical Code. This provides additional safety for users. Ninthly, understand the role of the authority having jurisdiction. Remember that the authority having jurisdiction, which is typically a local electrical inspector, has the final say on whether an installation complies with the National Electrical Code. Be prepared to provide documentation and explanations to support your interpretation of the code. Tenthly, consider professional consultation. If you're unsure about any aspect of the installation, consult with a qualified electrical contractor or engineer who is familiar with the National Electrical Code and local requirements. They can provide expert guidance and ensure that the installation is safe and code compliant. Let's further expand on each of these points to give a more in-depth understanding. Firstly, the National Electrical Code definitions for wet niche, no niche, and dry niche luminaires are crucial for determining if 680.23F applies to the SPOS lighting. A wet niche luminaire is designed for installation in a swimming pool or similar environment where the fixture is submerged in water. It typically requires a specific type of enclosure and wiring method to prevent water from entering the fixture and causing electrical hazards. A no-niche luminaire is designed for installation in a swimming pool or similar environment without requiring a niche or recess in the pool wall. It's typically mounted directly to the pool surface and may have specific requirements for bonding and grounding. A dry niche luminaire is designed for installation in a dry location such as a pool deck or equipment room. It's not intended to be submerged in water and has different requirements for wiring and protection compared to wet niche luminaires. If the SPOS light doesn't meet any of these definitions, it's less likely that 680.23F would apply. Secondly, the product listing and certification information for the SPA can provide valuable details about its compliance with relevant standards and any specific instructions for electrical connections. Look for markings or labels on the SPA that indicate it has been tested and certified by a recognized testing laboratory, such as Underwriters Laboratories or ETL. These markings indicate that the SPA meets certain safety standards and has been evaluated for its intended use. The listing information may also include details about the voltage, amperage, and wiring requirements for the SPA's electrical system, including the lighting. Thirdly, always refer to the manufacturer's installation instructions for the SPA. These instructions are typically included with the product and provide detailed guidance on how to install the SPA safely and correctly. The instructions may include specific requirements for wiring, grounding, bonding, and other electrical connections. They may also provide information about the type of wiring methods that are permitted or required for the SPA's electrical system. It's important to follow the manufacturer's instructions carefully to ensure that the SPA is installed in accordance with their specifications and that it meets all applicable codes and standards. Fourthly, carefully review the scope of 680.23F to determine if it applies to the specific wiring and equipment in question. This section of the National Electrical Code addresses branch circuit wiring on the supply side of enclosures and junction boxes that are connected to wet niche, no niche, and dry niche luminaires. If the SPA's light doesn't meet any of these definitions, or if the wiring is not on the supply side of an enclosure or junction box, then 680.23F may not apply. Pay attention to the language in the code and consult with a qualified electrical professional if you're unsure about its applicability. Fifthly, determine the voltage, wattage, and type of the SPA's light. This information can help you determine if it falls under any specific requirements or exemptions in the National Electrical Code. Low voltage lights, for example, may have different wiring requirements compared to line voltage lights. The wattage of the light can also affect the size of the conductors and overcurrent protection devices that are required. The type of light, such as incandescent, LED, or halogen, can also have implications for the installation. Be sure to consult the National Electrical Code and other applicable standards for specific requirements based on the characteristics of the SPA's light. Sixthly, be aware that local jurisdictions may have amendments to the National Electrical Code that could affect the installation requirements for SPAs and lighting. These amendments may be more restrictive or more lenient than the National Electrical Code, depending on the local conditions and priorities. It's important to check with the local electrical inspector or building department to determine if there are any local amendments that apply to your installation. They can provide you with the most up-to-date and accurate information about the requirements in your area. Seventhly, ensure that all metal parts of the spa, including the light fixture, are properly bonded in accordance with Article 680 of the National Electrical Code. Bonding is the process of connecting metal parts together to create a low impedance path for fault current to flow back to the source. This helps minimize the risk of electric shock by ensuring that all metal parts are at the same electrical potential. Article 680 provides specific requirements for bonding spas and swimming pools, including the size and type of bonding conductors that are required. Be sure to follow these requirements carefully to ensure that the spa is properly bonded and that it meets all applicable safety standards. Eighthly, verify that the electrical circuit supplying the spa is protected by a ground fault circuit interrupter, as required by the National Electrical Code. A ground fault circuit interrupter is a device that detects small amounts of current leakage to ground and interrupts the circuit to prevent electric shock. The National Electrical Code requires ground fault circuit interrupter protection for all electrical circuits that supply spas and swimming pools, as well as other locations where there is a high risk of electric shock. Be sure to test the ground fault circuit interrupter regularly to ensure that it is functioning properly. Ninthly, the authority having jurisdiction, typically a local electrical inspector, has the final say on whether an installation complies with the National Electrical Code. The electrical inspector is responsible for enforcing the code and ensuring that electrical installations are safe and code compliant. Be prepared to provide documentation and explanations to support your interpretation of the code, and be willing to make corrections if the inspector identifies any violations. Building a good working relationship with the electrical inspector can help ensure that your installation is approved and that it meets all applicable safety standards. Tenthly, if you are unsure about any aspect of the installation, consult with a qualified electrical contractor or engineer who is familiar with the National Electrical Code and local requirements. An electrical contractor or engineer can provide expert guidance and ensure that the installation is safe and code compliant. They can also help you navigate the complexities of the National Electrical Code and local amendments and provide you with peace of mind knowing that your installation has been done correctly. Remember that electrical work can be dangerous, and it's always best to err on the side of caution. Seeking professional help can prevent injuries and ensure that your spa is installed safely and in compliance with all applicable codes and standards.